Someone was riding into this place, no. Galloping through. Clearly, they were in a hurry. That rainy night, at the city lord's manor in Aba City. The guards at the gate stepped forward to block the rider. This is the city lord's manor. No horses allowed beyond this point, one of them said. But the rider held up a seal. Stand aside. Urgent command from the royal capital. I must deliver it to the city lord immediately. Inside the manor, the city lord took the sealed message and opened it. His face froze in shock. This man, he was none other than Austin Kravis, city lord of Aba, and he couldn't believe what he was reading. The guard continued his report. The royal capital has verified it. Leold has entered Aba City. However, his exact whereabouts and intentions remain unclear. Lady Kravis furrowed her brows in confusion. Leold? Isn't he the high-level mage who betrayed the kingdom? He vanished 3 years ago. Why would he suddenly reappear in Aba? Austin shook his head. I don't know, but if he truly is back. Suddenly, a flash of lightning tore through the night sky, as if splitting it in two. With Leold's magical power, destroying all of Aba wouldn't be difficult. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a young man named Tranlac was practicing magic. He had just finished learning a new spell. Enhancing his mental energy had significantly improved his speed, but it came at a heavy price. He was exhausted, and the magic materials he just bought were already used up. He slumped over, barely able to stay upright. 500 gold coins, gone in a flash. It's not enough. I seriously need to find a way to make more money. Nearby, Toby teased. Blair, ever since you started hanging out with Brittany, your body's been wasting away. Tranlac flipped him the bird. You looking to get smacked? A ruckus broke out above them. Catching Toby's attention, a group of girls was buzzing excitedly about someone. Look, here's a photo of Lack God. Took me forever to get it. Whoa, so handsome, let me see. He's so young too. How did you even get this? This, Lack God, was actually Tranlac himself. Lack God is way too good looking. Toby clicked his tongue, clearly annoyed. Bunch of boy crazy fangirls. Tranlac, on the other hand, was completely in the dark. Lack God? Who's that? Toby explained. You really don't know? Recently, a masked guy named Tranlac solved all 23 mathematical problems that had stumped the Aba Mathematics Association for nearly a century. The whole kingdom of Nolan's math community is going wild trying to find him. He continued. Because of his insane mathematical skills, people started calling him Lack God. Tranlac was dumbfounded. Wait, what? God? Now? That's way too much. Toby smirked. Honestly, with skills like that, I bet he's just some old geezer. No way someone that young could be so smart. Right, Blair? Tranlac nodded quickly, playing along. Why yeah, totally right. Super old. Definitely. Then Toby asked. Oh yeah, after class today. There's that extracurricular magic cannon practice. Have you decided who you're teaming up with? Tranlac blinked. Wait, you're not grouping with me? I'm skipping it, Toby said casually. My magic skills are trash. So I got my old man to write me a sick note. Turns out, this practice session would be held together with the 2nd and 3rd year students. Later that afternoon, in the rear mountain area behind St. Danya's Academy, the teacher addressed the students. This magic training session is to further enhance your magical skills. However, I must emphasize, safety is the highest priority. Most of the dangerous creatures on this mountain have already been cleared by the academy. But under no circumstances should any of you leave the designated area. One more thing, the teacher added. Form groups of 3 to 4 people. You'll be spending the night in the mountains and return here by noon tomorrow. Understood? Then, turning specifically to one student, Blair. Did you hear that clearly? He nodded nervously. Why yes, sir. Isabella turned to Blair. Good. Now choose, me or her. Who's your teammate? Tranlac froze. Why can't everyone just go together? Alice laughed. Wow, didn't expect Junior Blair to be so greedy, trying to take both of us as teammates. Huh? I like that idea. Isabella's smile turned stiff. Alice? Still, she relented. Fine, I'll go along with it. Who's afraid of who? Tranlac cheered. That's the spirit. Phew, they didn't turn their anger on me, lucky break. Then, ow, Isabella, why'd you pinch me? She huffed. HMPH, I just felt like it. High on a distant mountain, a man looked down upon the city. Mr. Leold, the sun has set, someone called out behind him. Leold tightened his grip on his staff. Around him stood his loyal followers. He spoke to them solemnly. My friends, we've finally reached this point. They all gazed at the city below, now bathed in dusk. Leold's eyes burned with resolve. What he wanted was Aba City. And by the time the sun rose again, it would no longer exist. At the rear mountain of St. Danya's Academy, A white rabbit appeared, hopping across the grassy meadow. Suddenly, its ears twitched upright as if it sensed something. It stood on its hind legs and looked ahead. Without warning, the rabbit opened its mouth and released a stream of light, with sparks gathering in front of it. With a forceful motion, it launched a fireball forward. But the fireball stopped midair, surprising the rabbit. It was quickly extinguished, and the frightened rabbit looked as if its soul had left its body. The one who had calmly and swiftly dispelled the fireball was Isabella, who had been casting a spell nearby. Behind her, Alice was walking over while cuddling another rabbit in her arms. Isabella turned around, winked cheerfully, and said, "Success. I've managed to control its fireball." Blair frowned slightly and replied, While Isabella celebrated, Blair grabbed the white rabbit's ears, propped his chin on his hand, and fell into thought. Just as Antony said, once a rabbit loses control over its fireball ability, it becomes completely stiff and immobile. Suddenly, a hand reached out and yanked Blair's ear. It was Isabella, her face slightly annoyed. "Blair, how could you pull the ears of such a cute rabbit?" "Ow, ow, ow, let go, let go," Blair yelled in pain. Isabella hugged the rabbit and gently patted it while smiling. "Hee, don't be scared, little one, I already chased away the bad guy." Behind her, Blair sat slumped on the ground, sighing with despair. Not even as good as a rabbit. Alice gently touched Blair's reddened ear, surprising him. As she rubbed the spot, she asked with concern, "Blair, are you okay? You're not trying to catch the rabbit?" Blair blushed and stammered, No, it's fine, we just started, there's still time to catch one." Clearing his throat, still flushed, he asked, "Right, Alice, aside from rabbits, do other animals know magic too?" Alice, stroking the rabbit in her arms, nodded. "Yes, that's common knowledge. On the continent of the Nin, magic isn't exclusive to humans. Most animals can communicate with magical elements too, but generally, they can only connect with one elemental type and can't cast anything too complicated." She added, "For example, rabbits are aligned with the fire element, and they can only cast the lowest level fireball spell." Alice held out her hand toward Blair and continued, "And as for the question you asked earlier, honestly, even Antony probably doesn't have the answer. I don't think anyone on the continent does." Blair scratched his head sheepishly. "I was just asking randomly at the time." Meanwhile, Professor Antony stood at the gate to the rear mountain. Deep in thought, someone approached from behind and called out, "Professor Antony." It was Vice Dean Archer, who looked at Antony and asked, "Why haven't you entered the mountain to patrol?" Antony replied, hand on his chin, "Vice Dean Archer, I've been thinking about the question Blair asked me earlier." "Blair again?" Archer raised an eyebrow. "What did he ask this time?" Antony explained, "When he saw a rabbit shoot a fireball from its mouth, he asked me, why do humans need incantations and hand gestures to manipulate magic, while rabbits don't?" Archer looked baffled. Both men placed their hands on their chins, falling into a thoughtful silence. Then Archer suddenly clapped Antony on the back. "Right, Professor Antony, you really should be in the mountain patrolling. You need to protect the students." Startled, Antony yelped, recovering, he muttered, "But you haven't answered my question." The Vice Dean shouted, "What answer? Which is more important, your question or the student's safety? Go, now, later, in front of a campfire." Blair stammered nervously, Miss Isabella, Miss Alice, the two of you." Isabella blushed and gripped her shirt near her chest. "Blair, you already touched them earlier. So, whose is bigger?" "Mine." Alice's face turned bright red, wiping sweat from her brow and licking her lips seductively. Isabella continued, "Or Alice's?" Blair, flustered and shaking, replied, "Well, I did touch them both, but it's still hard to judge." Alice suddenly grabbed Blair's hand and said, "Then let our junior Blair touch again to be sure." He stared at her, shocked. Isabella let out a sigh and muttered, "Seriously?" Then she hugged her rabbit and continued, "It's obvious my rabbit is bigger than yours. Why won't you admit it?" Blair's hand was on the rabbit Alice was holding. Alice looked at Isabella and said, "Let's just hear what Blair has to say." Isabella raised her rabbit in front of Blair and demanded, "Blair, say it, whose rabbit is bigger, mine or Alice's?" Blair looked torn. Well, suddenly, the white rabbit in Isabella's arms started wriggling violently and broke free, making her cry out, "Ah, my rabbit." The rabbit darted away and dove into a hollow in a nearby tree. From a distance, Isabella called out, "Little bunny," sweating from chasing after it. She panted, "Where did it go?" Alice came over and shouted her name. Isabella noticed the hollow and peered in. "Why is there a tunnel here? Did it go inside?" Alice approached and scolded, "Told you not to let it run around." Just then, a strange sound echoed out, startling all three of them. The ground began to tremble. Isabella gasped in shock. Alice held her rabbit tightly, frowning, while Blair anxiously looked around. Suddenly, the earth beneath Isabella and Alice cracked open, forming a deep pit. Both girls screamed as they fell into the hole. After the accident, the dust began to settle, and everything gradually quieted down, leaving behind an eerie calm. Suddenly, a hand emerged from the ground. It was Isabella, miraculously still alive after the disaster. Struggling, she clawed her way out of the solid earth with all her strength, dragging another hand along with her. After a long effort, Isabella finally managed to free not only herself but also Alice. Once she had laid her companion down comfortably on the ground, Isabella finally had a moment to rest. She looked around and realized they were inside what appeared to be a corridor. Above them, a large hole in the ceiling let sunlight stream in. She had never seen this place before. Gasping for breath, she muttered to herself, Where are we?" Alice, lying beside her, was still unconscious and murmuring in her sleep. Blair, she said, her face twisting as if trapped in a nightmare. Realizing how dangerous the situation was, Isabella hurried to rouse her friend. "Alice, wake up." When Alice didn't respond, Isabella anxiously checked her breathing. Her expression quickly shifted to panic. Something was wrong. Recalling her basic first aid training, she tilted Alice's chin upward. Taking a deep breath, she puffed her cheeks and began mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Thanks to her quick thinking, after several attempts, Alice finally stirred, letting out a soft groan. She coughed violently as she suddenly sat up, trying to clear whatever was blocking her throat. Cough. Likely from a lack of oxygen. Alice hacked repeatedly, coughing as if it were the first time in her life. Cough, cough, cough. Seeing her friend awake, Isabella was overwhelmed with relief. Eyes glistening, she asked, "You're okay now, right?" Only to be answered by another round of coughing. A while later, once she had stabilized, Alice was finally able to speak. "Yeah, I'm okay." Still puzzled, she looked around and asked, "Where are we?" Isabella shook her head. "I don't know either. When I crawled out of the dirt, we were already here. Looks like a stone cave?" Alice stood up to get a better look, murmuring curiously, "Strange, I've never heard of there being a cave under the academy's rear mountain." Isabella pointed toward a direction. "There's a door over there. Maybe we can get out that way." Suddenly recalling the events just prior, Alice turned to her and said, "Oh right, earlier, thank you, Isabella." But Isabella stood motionless, not reacting at all. Alice started to feel annoyed, not realizing that her friend was in just as much shock. Her mind still echoing the words, "You okay?" Unable to hold back, Alice snapped, "What's with that attitude?" Isabella replied casually, "Nothing, I just didn't expect you to know how to say thank you." Hearing that, Alice was at a loss for words. At the same time, back in the academy courtyard, chaos had broken out. Students gathered in small groups, whispering nervously. "That was scary. Do you think we'll lose all our scores for this? What even was that earthquake? My rabbit ran off." One student approached timidly. "Vice Principal Archer, are we going to lose all our credit for this round?" To avoid further panic, Archer tried to calm the crowd. "It's fine, don't worry. This will be treated as an accident. There's no need to panic." Anthony ran over to report. "Vice Principal Archer, I think all the students have evacuated the mountain." But Archer was clearly displeased. He narrowed his eyes. "Think?" Anthony scratched his head and explained, "Well, the earthquake happened so suddenly. We and the other teachers did our best to clear the mountain. There probably aren't any students left up there. Professor Cook is going over the roster now. We'll have the exact numbers soon." Just then, the sound of galloping hooves thundered through the city streets. Hiya, hiya. A group of riders on horseback barreled down the road, urging their mounts faster and yelling, "Make way, clear the road." Startled citizens quickly moved aside. The clatter of hooves gradually faded as the horsemen disappeared into the distance. Students watched, murmuring to each other, as the riders vanished from view. Anthony frowned. "Why are the city guards mobilizing?" Archer didn't respond. Deep in thought, he finally muttered, "Looks like that earthquake wasn't just a simple natural disaster." The scene shifted to a dark, lightless space. Isabella cautiously peeked her head out, surveying her surroundings. "This place is huge." Suddenly, a carved stone pillar appeared before the girls. Intricate patterns glowed faintly along its surface, with symbols dancing around it. A network of cables and wires fed into the center of the column, adding to its mysterious and eerie beauty. One of them stepped forward and reached out to touch the softly glowing pillar. Isabella looked up in awe. Such complex engravings. The moment her hand touched the surface, a crackling noise sounded, as if electricity had surged through it. Boom! A burst of violet magic hurled Isabella backward. Alice's eyes widened in shock as she rushed to her friend. Isabella, are you okay? Cradling her head, Isabella groaned. I'm fine. Looks like this pillar is protected by a high-level ward. Seeing that Isabella wasn't seriously hurt, Alice turned her attention to the pillar. This reminds me of something I read in a very old magic tome. Her words piqued Isabella's interest. What is it? Alice continued. It said that ancient elves used to construct massive copper columns etched with arcane runes. When linked together by copper filaments, they would form a magical array of immense power. A magic array? Isabella echoed, astonished. What was it used for? Alice shook her head. I don't know. Maybe for healing, or accelerating large-scale growth. While the two were talking, a barrage of arrows suddenly appeared. Already mid-flight, without warning, the projectiles rained down upon them. The pillar began to emit an unusual glow. Thankfully, both girls reacted quickly, narrowly dodging the attack. They gasped in horror as the arrows embedded themselves deep in the ground, leaving massive cracks. A shadowy figure emerged. A magical array still spun before him. This was clearly the one who had just attacked. Seeing the panic on their faces, the henchmen of Leold grinned smugly from the upper ledge. Not bad. Ladies, you got some reflexes. The two girls looked up to see a white-haired man standing on the balcony, holding a spear. Their sleeves were torn and tattered from the earlier skirmish. Alice stared in shock and cried out, "You, who are you?" The man crossed his arms, resting them on his spear, a glint of surprise flashing across his face before he smirked sinisterly. That's what I should be asking. But no matter, you're both about to die anyway. The girls exchanged a glance, wordlessly communicating. What do we do? Isabella gave a subtle nod. Attack first. They began to channel their magic. Determination hardened Alice's face as flames burst to life in her hands. Oh fire element, ever burning across the world, heed my call. A wave of heat surged around them. Isabella added her chant, and together they shouted, "Descend upon this place." The man scoffed dismissively. HMPH. Fireball spell. Really? A massive fireball shot toward him, but it struck a barrier of ice and fizzled out. The shield absorbed the flames completely. The girls' faces turned pale. What? They gasped. The man leapt down, spear in hand. He landed with brutal force and kicked Isabella away. She cried out as she tumbled backwards. He advanced on her, intent on finishing her off. Alice tried to intervene, but he was faster. His spear slammed into the wall just inches from her face. Cornered. Alice's face went white with fear. NGH. Suddenly, he grabbed her by the neck and lifted her into the air. She coughed, choking. KHKHH. Dangling. Her body trembled. WH. Who are you? The man sneered, eyes flashing. Sorry, but I only need to kill the two of you. Alice's eyes widened in terror. The blade swung toward her. She shut her eyes, thinking. No. Blood splattered. A figure had stepped in, his fire magic blocking the fatal blow. The man's face twisted in fury. You. Alice, shocked, covered her mouth. Isabella, seeing who it was, cried out in alarm. Blair, be careful. The man glared at Blair. He could see the fire magic swirling around him, but something was off. A fire spell, but he didn't chant anything. Blair's magic exploded outward in a powerful blast. Smoke cleared to reveal all three of them. Unharmed, Blair stood firm, clenching his injured arm. Isabella rushed to his side. Blair, you came? What about your arm? Should we bandage it? I followed you both down here through the cave, he said evenly. Then, glancing at his wound, added, I'll deal with this later. The enemy coughed violently. KHK. Kneeling, he wiped the blood from his mouth. I couldn't even follow how he cast that spell. Sweat dripped down his face as he gritted his teeth. Could his casting speed really be faster than Lord Leold's? He stood abruptly, gripping his spear. No matter. You've all seen too much. You'll die here. Frost gathered around the tip of his weapon. He charged, spear poised. Blair, look out! The girls cried in unison. But Blair remained still. The enemy faltered midair, his instincts screaming. Above, clouds gathered, magic pulsing in the sky. What, water orb magic? Again with no incantation? The orb cracked apart, surrounded by rings of fire. Wait, something's wrong. This isn't just water orb. The attack rained down in a fury of elemental force. The man was struck head-on, his body flung backward, coughing up blood. Gawk. As the smoke cleared, he was soaked and trembling. His spear now blood-stained. He clutched it tightly, eyes burning with rage, but said nothing. The weapon slipped from his grasp. He staggered forward a few steps, muttering in disbelief. What the hell is this? Then he collapsed, face first onto the ground. Elsewhere, in a shadowy place, a young man with teal hair sat atop a rock. His eyes narrowed as he sensed a disturbance. One of his subordinates approached. Lord Leold, is something wrong? Leold slowly turned to him and said coldly, "A rat has slipped in." Under the bright moon, a group of riders galloped swiftly through the forest. The leader pulled the reins and shouted, "Stop here." He dismounted and gave his orders. "The entrance to the underground passage is just ahead. Everyone, dismount and prepare to move in." With a stern expression, he addressed the group loudly. The enemy leader this time is Leold, an elite high-ranking mage from the Empire. Extremely dangerous. You must stay on high alert. Suddenly, a soldier cried out in panic, pointing ahead, "Captain, look over there." The leader turned his head, and the entire group froze. Standing before them was a man holding a staff, his arms crossed, cold eyes watching them. "Leold, apologies, gentlemen," he said icily. "This area is off limits." A soldier screamed in horror. "Leold!" The captain rushed forward and shouted. The enemy leader has appeared. Ready for battle. Weapons were drawn, everyone on edge. One man spoke to the young soldier beside him with a serious tone. "Ethan, stick close to me during the fight. Don't wander off, got it?" "Yes, uncle," Ethan replied quickly. Dark clouds gathered above. Someone muttered, "No matter what, he's just one man. Surround him. Attack." "Yes, sir," the group responded in unison. But soon after, the skies opened and rain poured down. Ethan, dazed and shivering, struggled to open his eyes. Bodies were scattered around him. His comrades, all fallen. He sat up, clutching his head in pain. Looking down at his own hands. Bewildered, he whispered, "I'm still alive?" A voice called out faintly. "Ethan." That familiar voice startled him. He stood up carefully, scanning the area. "Uncle? Uncle, where are you?" "There." His uncle lay on the ground, face contorted in pain. Ethan rushed over, grasped his hand, and cried, "Uncle, no, what happened? What do I do?" The older man, covered in wounds, pulled out a command medallion and handed it over. "Ethan, don't worry about me. Take this. Finish the mission." Soaked in rain, Ethan took the medallion, trembling, sobbing. "Uncle, I can't do this. You saw Leold, he took down everyone by himself." Ethan clenched his eyes shut and screamed. He even killed the captain with just a wave of his hand. If he so much as twitches his fingers, I'm dead too. Tears streamed down the man's cheeks as he gasped. "Finish the mission." He slumped against Ethan's back, whispering his final words. "Save Abba." His hand dropped limp. Rain poured harder. Ethan collapsed to his knees, grief overwhelming him. Uncle." Meanwhile, elsewhere, the heavy door creaked open. Inside, Isabella was bandaging Blair's injured arm. He winced and complained, "OWW, Isabella, could you be a little gentler?" Remembering something, she suddenly asked, "Wait, Blair, earlier you cast magic without chanting or even using hand signs. How did you do that?" Blair looked away, clearly flustered. Maybe my speaking and hand movement were just too fast for you to see?" Isabella scowled and pressed hard into his wound. Blair yelped, Ow. He rolled on the ground in pain while she crossed her arms with a huff. HMPH. Alice, watching nearby, intervened gently. "Isabella, go easy on Blair." But Isabella planted her hands on her hips and retorted, "He deserves it for always acting so mysterious." Turning toward a nearby pillar, she asked, "Alice, have you figured out what this pillar really is?" Alice looked uncertain. "Not exactly, but I'm pretty sure I've seen it in a book before. It's part of a magical formation." The pillar glowed with bright light and crackled with arcs of lightning. Alice continued, "I still don't know what this formation is for, but I think the earthquake that brought us here is connected to it." She glanced toward the unconscious white-haired man on the ground. "And judging by how that guy ambushed us, I doubt this formation has any good purpose." Blair sat up and brushed the dirt from his hands. "Either way, we need to find a way out of here and report all of this to the academy." The girls looked at him in surprise. "We'll let them handle this." As soon as he said that, a blade touched his throat. The two girls froze in confusion. A young man, Ethan, had suddenly appeared, sword drawn and aimed at Blair. He shouted, "Who are you people? What are you doing here?" In a flash, Blair's hand shot up and caught Ethan's wrist. Ethan gasped, startled. Blair spun around, twisting Ethan's arm behind his back and forcing him to kneel. "So you do have backup." Ethan trembled, refusing to yield. Isabella observed thoughtfully, rubbing her chin, face scrunched in anger and pain. Ethan shouted, "Let go of me, let me go or Abba will be doomed." The three of them echoed in disbelief. What? At the center of the formation site, someone finally broke the silence. So that's what this is. Isabella, sitting cross-legged, suddenly spoke up. So you're saying you came here to stop Leold from activating this magic formation? But your whole unit was wiped out in his ambush. And now you're the only one left? Ethan lowered his head, voice heavy. Actually, the royal capital had received intel a few days ago that Leold had infiltrated Aba City. But no matter how hard we searched, we couldn't pinpoint his exact location. We didn't even know what he was planning, not until earlier. When this place suddenly shook with a powerful magical disturbance. They sat in a circle around one of the glowing pillars. Runes etched all over its surface. Ethan's tone turned anxious. I just never imagined Leold would be that powerful. Even with all of us together. Blair raised his hand like a schoolboy. Sorry. Question. Who exactly is Leold? Isabella pressed a hand to her forehead in exasperation. Blair, seriously, do you have a limit to how little common sense you can have? The other two gave awkward chuckles, unsure how to respond. Alice smiled gently, stepping in to explain. Leold is the most infamous and dangerous criminal in the Kingdom of Nolan. Even kids know his name. He used to be a top general in the royal army, stationed at the border. She recalled the image, Leold, holding his sword high, a war flag fluttering in the wind. Not only was he a master of close combat, he was also a high-level mage with incredible magical power. He fought in countless border wars and brought great glory to Nolan. Back then, he was hailed as a national hero. Alice's voice turned somber, but in one crucial battle, Leold suddenly led his troops in betrayal against the kingdom. His defection caused Nolan to lose that war. He vanished after that. The kingdom's kept a huge bounty on him ever since. But he's never been caught. Rumor has it he's been hiding in the royal capital, plotting a coup to overthrow the kingdom. Isabella turned to Ethan. So Leold came to Aba City because of this magic formation? What exactly does it do? Ethan clenched his fists, eyes blazing. This formation has the power to destroy all of Aba City. The three gasped in unison. Destroy Aba City? Ethan pointed to the pillar beside them. There are a total of 118 magic pillars like this one, scattered across the surrounding mountains. No one knows who built the formation or what their purpose was. But it's at least 1,000 years old. He recalled a memory. Soldiers holding torches before ancient pillars. About 10 years ago, the city lord discovered this formation buried beneath the mountains. The Mage Guild was brought in to investigate. They found the formation far exceeded our current understanding of magic. Its mechanics and activation principles remain unsolved to this day. He described mages channeling spells into the pillars. The only thing we do know is that once it activates, it'll unleash an immense surge of magical energy, enough to turn Aba City into ashes. Ethan leaned back on his hands. Because we had no way of safely dismantling it. The formation's existence was kept secret. Until the earthquake earlier, somehow. Leold triggered it. That's why we were sent, to stop him before it's too late. Blair scratched his chin, skeptical. But if you all don't really understand how it works, how are you going to stop it? Ethan pulled out a sigil-like token. That's where this comes in. All three stared at the object, eyes widening. This token was originally embedded in the central pillar. Ethan explained. Even though the formation uses many pillars, there's one core pillar that's the largest and most important. It's the key to activating the entire system. He looked at the token with resolve. The Mage Guild discovered that the closer this token is to the core pillar, the weaker the formation becomes. And if the token touches the pillar, it shuts the whole thing down. Clearly, the person who designed the formation built in a failsafe. He closed his fingers around it. That's why the city lord kept it under guard all these years. Blair's eyes were wide with wonder. So if we just bring that token to the core pillar, we can stop the whole thing? Ethan stood abruptly, fists clenched. That's our mission. But Leold, he was far stronger than we ever imagined. Blair frowned. But if your entire team's gone, then Leold's probably on alert now. Shouldn't you go back down the mountain and call for reinforcements? There's no way you can pull this off alone. Ethan shook his head, expression firm. There's no time. You saw the light coming from the pillar, it's already starting. In 1 hour, the formation will fully activate. At that point, even if we had an army, it wouldn't matter. He looked at them, determined. The only way to save Aba City now is for me to reach the core pillar with this token. You're just civilians, students. You should leave now. Follow the path back. Get as far away as you can. Blair suddenly broke the tension, raising a hand in alarm. I hate to interrupt this noble moment, but I think your pants. Ethan looked down. His pants were soaked through. His face turned red with horror. This is just rain. I was outside in the rain. Isabella shot to her feet. Scowling, Ethan froze, with fire in her eyes. Isabella declared, "The Kravis family has protected Aba City for generations. As Isabella Kravis, I will not abandon it now. I'm coming with you to stop this formation, even if it means facing a wanted criminal with 100 million crown bounty." Her words struck like arrows. Blair gave her a strained smile. Ethan was stunned. "Why, you're the city lord's daughter? Lady Isabella?" A hand landed on his shoulder. Blair grinned, thumb pointing to his chest. "As a good citizen of Aba City, it's my duty to help protect it." Alice stepped forward as well. "Obviously, I'm coming too." Blair turned, smiling. "Guess you're stuck with us." Ethan's eyes welled up with emotion. "You, guys?" The pillar beside them pulsed with runes and glowing magic. Blair spoke up. "Oh, by the way, you still want to wipe off your pants first?" Ethan snarled, face flushed. "Mind your own damn business." Elsewhere, people stood in a circle, chanting incantations. "O fire element of this world, heed my summons, descend upon this place." Fire rain spell. Streams of magical fire surged down onto the barrier, cloaking everything in thick, black smoke. When the smoke cleared, the barrier remained completely unscathed. An old man with glasses turned, disappointed. "Vice President Elton, it's no use. Our spells aren't affecting the shield at all." A bald man closed his eyes, sighing. "All we can do is wait for the president to return and see if he has any ideas." The bespectacled old man frowned impatiently. "The president is still en route from the capital. At the earliest, he won't arrive until tomorrow morning. By then, Aba City might be gone." Just then, a voice rang out. "Elton." Everyone turned toward the voice, confused, then shouted in unison. "City Lord." The white-haired old man in armor had arrived, flanked by soldiers. "You still haven't broken through the barrier?" The old man shook his head, eyes closed. "We've done everything we can." The vice president grimaced. "Our advance team is rushing to deliver the command medallion before the barrier fully activates. All we can do now is hope they succeed." Elsewhere, the path was covered in spiderwebs. Ethan, rubbing his chin, frowned. "This really is a huge crisis." Blair, irritated, smacked him hard on the head. "Ow, what was that for?" Ethan snapped, face turning red in pain. "The place is crawling with webs. You're not afraid of spiders?" Blair ignored him completely. A small golden spider descended silently on a strand of silk. Feeling something on his neck, Ethan brushed at it, and when he saw the spider in his hand, he screamed. "Ah!" He bolted off down the tunnel, leaving Blair and Isabella blinking in confusion. "Are all city guards like that?" Blair asked. Isabella hesitated. Probably just that guy." Suddenly, Ethan's foot stomped loudly on the ground, triggering a hidden mechanism. Blair grabbed his collar and yanked him back just in time. An arrow shot past them, missing by inches. Ethan gawked at the hole in the wall. "Damn, that trap was well hidden." He mumbled, Thanks." Blair scanned the tunnel and warned. "This place is filled with traps. Be careful. Also, does anyone else feel like we're heading in the wrong direction? Are you sure this tunnel leads to the main pillar?" Wiping sweat from his brow, Ethan nodded. "I'm sure. I memorized the layout. We're about to enter a secret passage that no one else knows about." The others echoed in surprise. "A secret passage?" Ethan continued. "The central chamber with the main pillar has many connecting tunnels, but they all require passing through the large main door. Based on my analysis of the layout and Leold's likely location, confronting him head-on would be suicide. That's why I'm taking us through a secret route. It leads directly to the pillar without going through the front." He laid out the plan, envisioning their sneaky approach. "If we're lucky, we can slip in while Leold is distracted and use the medallion to shut down the magic circle." The girls stared at him, surprised. Blair rested his chin on his hand. "I have a question. How do you even know about this secret passage?" Ethan winked and pointed to himself proudly. "I majored in history. I can read ancient scripts. When I joined the city guard, I read through all the old records in the city lord's mansion. One of them included a map of the magic formation. That's why I was chosen for this mission." Blair raised an eyebrow. "You studied history, and ended up in the city guard?" Ethan scratched his cheek, embarrassed. "Yeah, well, history grads don't have many job options. My uncle had a small position in the guard, so he pulled some strings. This is actually my first mission outside." Blair stared, speechless. Job hunting really is hell, no matter the world. Suddenly, Ethan stopped and touched the stone wall. "Found it, it's here." He pressed a square panel, opening a hidden passage. Frowning with concern, he added, "From here, it's a straight shot to the central chamber." Elsewhere, magical circles pulsed in the air. A subordinate reported, "Lord Leold, the external barrier is stable. All magical energy is being funneled into the core orb. So far, no breaches." Leold looked up calmly. "This barrier system, it's flawless. I wonder how the ancients made it." He narrowed his eyes. "Where's Stockholm?" The subordinate replied, "He went west to patrol and hasn't returned yet." Leold muttered, "The west, looks like we've still got a few rats sneaking around." Meanwhile, Blair led the way with a lantern, Ethan clinging nervously to his arm. The two girls followed close behind. Blair peeked cautiously through the opening. He lifted the stone tile. No one outside. Looks like Leold really is at the main gate. He pushed the tile aside, and the group climbed out one by one. The two girls gasped in awe. "This place is huge," Alice muttered, kneeling on the floor. Ethan clenched his teeth and whispered, "Ah, finally, we're out." In the center of the room floated a glowing orb of electricity, radiating mana. Isabella looked around, puzzled. "This room's massive, but where's the central pillar?" "There's only that lightning orb. There used to be a pillar," Ethan replied, "but I guess when the magic array started charging up, it retracted it." He stepped closer, spotting lines of ancient script etched into the floor. "Just as I thought. Here's the mechanism to raise the pillar." To their surprise, Ethan began reciting the incantation with practiced fluency. Light swirled around his hand, igniting the spell. The pillar responded with a violet glow, rising slowly from the floor. Ethan dropped into a crouch and glanced at the others. "It'll take a few more minutes to fully emerge. We'll have to wait." Alice let out a relieved breath. "Everything's gone smoother than expected. Good thing you led us through the secret passage, Ethan." She smiled warmly, then asked curiously, "But Ethan, you're so timid. Why are you so determined to see this mission through instead of just running away on your own?" Ethan scratched his cheek, looking a little awkward, but his voice carried pride. "Who's timid? I'm Ethan, proud defender of Aba City. From beginning to end, I've always put the safety of our people first. Of course I had to see the mission through." Blair scowled and smacked him on the head. "Speak human, damn it." Rubbing his head sadly, Ethan admitted, "Fine, it's actually because of my uncle." As the lightning orb grew more intense, Ethan continued, "My parents died when I was little. It was my second uncle who raised me, sent me to school, looked after me. He was like a father to me." His expression darkened. "Out there, Leold killed him, along with the others in the vanguard. Before he died, Uncle gave me this insignia and told me to finish the mission." His gaze turned distant as he added, "Uncle's only daughter is still inside Aba City. Now that he's gone, I have to protect her. Even if he hadn't said anything, I couldn't let this magic array fully activate." Blair caught onto the key point and smirked teasingly. I'm starting to think you might be in love with your cousin?" Ethan's face flushed bright red. No way. I'm not worthy of her." Suddenly, two hands grabbed him, one tugging on his ear, the other pressing on his bandaged wound. It was the girls. Isabella yelled, "Blair, you act like an idiot most of the time. But how come you're so sharp at moments like this?" Alice smiled slyly. "Blair, don't tell me you've been pretending to be dumb all along?" Blair yelped in pain as Ethan squirmed. Ow, I am not pretending to be dumb." Then Blair noticed something in Ethan's hand. "Wait, what's this?" That caught the girls' attention. They leaned in to see a sketch of a girl, violet hair, gentle smile, wearing a light orange dress. Ethan rubbed his head shyly. "Yeah, that's her. Her name's Lena. She's my uncle's daughter. After this mission, she's beautiful," Isabella remarked. "Did you draw this yourself?" Before Ethan could reply, Blair suddenly grabbed both of his wrists, startling him. Blair's expression turned deadly serious as he growled, "Don't say it. Don't you dare say it. You're about to step over the line." Ethan blinked, baffled. "Blair?" With one hand behind his back, Blair solemnly declared, "There's a saying in my homeland, don't speak of dreams before the battle is over. So don't go saying stuff like, 'When this is over, I'll go home and confess,' or 'When this is over, I'll get married.' And never, ever, show anyone a picture of the one you're thinking about before the mission ends. Got it?" Ethan's eyes widened in confusion. Get married? Confess? Drawings? I think I understand? Maybe?" Alice leaned toward Isabella and whispered, "Have you ever heard that saying before?" Isabella giggled. "Nope, just ignore him. He does this sometimes, says weird stuff out of nowhere." The magic pillar surged upward, blazing with energy. Ethan turned and shouted in delight, "Yes, it's done." He grabbed the insignia and assumed a serious expression. Time to lift the seal. You guys, get ready. Blair raised an eyebrow. Seal? Ethan channeled mana into the insignia. His eyes focused. To avoid detection by Leold, the insignia was sealed before we entered the mountain. It's a basic sealing spell. Just needs a bit of spiritual energy to lift it. But once the seal's broken, the array will react. Leold will probably sense it too. So once I activate it, we have to move fast. The insignia glowed brightly. The electric orb above spat out arcs of blue-violet lightning. Ethan pressed the insignia onto the pillar. Almost there. We need to fall back quickly. But something felt off. His pupils shrank. A fire vortex erupted from thin air, engulfing Ethan in flames before the others could react. The fire vanished. Ethan collapsed, unconscious, the insignia dropping beside him. A flickering flame hovered at the fingertips of a figure stepping into the light of the magical array. It was Leold. He stared at the group with cold contempt, his voice low and mocking. Well, looks like the rats have finally come out to play. Ethan clutched the bleeding wound on his abdomen, gritting his teeth as he struggled to stay upright. Leold. The three behind him were stunned. The two girls exchanged glances, gave a silent nod, and moved in sync. Both raised their hands behind their backs, gathering mana as they began chanting. O fire element that fills the world, heed my call and descend upon this place. They shouted in unison. Fireball. 2 fireballs shot straight toward Leold, but before they could reach him, they were swiftly neutralized and faded into nothing. Alice's eyes widened, her mouth agape as she analyzed the situation. His spiritual power far surpasses ours. The moment our magic gets close, he instantly seizes control. Isabella was equally shocked. They vanished just like that? Suddenly, Leold's eyes narrowed. He sensed something was off. A fiery spell surged at him. He raised a hand to block. Seeing this, Blair, who was casting a spell himself, observed seriously. He blocked it. This Leold reacts fast. A blonde subordinate called out fearfully. Lord Leold. He frowned but replied calmly. I'm fine. Yet as he looked at his scorched sleeve, doubt crept into his mind. I didn't see any chant or hand signs. Where did that spell come from? And his spiritual energy, it's strange. Clearly not strong. Yet I can't seize control of his magic. With a determined expression, Blair raised his voice. Isabella, Alice, take the emblem and go. I'll stay behind to hold Leold off. Hurry. The two girls tightened their grip on the emblem and nodded. Got it. Blazing streaks of fire magic flew toward Leold and his men. He frowned, his sharp gaze quickly catching on. No chance, no gestures. As unbelievable as it is. Could this kid? The fire streaks converged into one massive fireball hurtling toward him. Leold cast a defensive spell. A barrier springing up in front of him. Flame shield, he incanted. He thought to himself. Casting magic without chants or gestures. Meanwhile, Leold's subordinates had pinned the two girls to the ground. Alice winced and snapped at her captor. Hey, easy with the hands. Will you? Isabella gritted her teeth, eyes fixed forward. Damn it, we were so close. Her trembling hand reached out toward the emblem. Blair made a bold decision, to combine fire and water magic at once. Looks like I have no choice but to defeat you first. Leold's expression briefly showed surprise. This is a fireball spell. But why is there water magic? 2 streams of magic flew toward him, merging in a violent explosion that filled the air with thick smoke. A masked man gasped. That power, is that really just fireball? Everyone stood in stunned silence. Blair, equally shocked, muttered, it worked. But in the next instant, a fist tore through his spell. Leold leapt into the air and slammed a punch into Blair's face. Stop flattering yourself, he barked. Blair couldn't dodge in time. The blow left him bruised. Leold followed with a punch to the gut, causing Blair to cough up blood. Face pale, Leold growled. Your spellcasting speed is impressive, but the gap between spells is too long. You've got no follow-up moves to expose your opponent's weakness. He struck one final time, his knee slamming into Blair's face. And your stance, unstable. Your footwork, unprepared. You're completely open to a close-range assault. Blair stumbled and collapsed. Leold looked down at him with contempt. Such a waste of talent. All that natural aptitude, but no real combat awareness. On the battlefield, you'd already be dead. Across the room, Ethan, bloody and battered, forced himself to his feet. Trembling. The one lacking awareness, is you. Leold turned, annoyed. Ethan glared back, chest heaving, his face full of fury. He clenched the emblem tightly in his blood-soaked hand, raising his shaking arm. Then he turned and charged toward the central pillar. Leold's eyes widened in rage. Oslo. A brown-haired young man with a spear responded. Yes. Blair, bruised and beaten, forced one eye open and shouted, Ethan, get out of the way. Ethan. But Ethan didn't respond. A voice was calling out to him. Faint. From within. Ethan. Ethan. A childhood memory surfaced, of a young boy holding the hands of two smaller children. Standing before a grave, little Ethan, with wide, innocent eyes, asked, Uncle, was Uncle Jason called a hero because he was really strong? The older boy beside him, face sorrowful, shook his head. No, Jason wasn't strong. He never even passed the physical test. The captain yelled at him all the time. He was a coward, too. Sometimes he'd wet his pants if we scared him. Young Ethan looked back at the gravestone, still curious. Then why do people call him a hero? The older boy placed a hand on his head and smiled softly. Because, when darkness fell, he stood up to protect everyone. Back in the present, blood sprayed through the air. Leold's eyes widened in disbelief. Ethan, the two girls screamed in unison. Blair, too injured to stand, clenched his teeth in anger. Ethan threw the emblem toward the pillar, but a spear pierced through him. His eyes opened wide as tears rolled down his cheeks. Uncle Jason, he whispered. Even if I have only a mortal body, I can still do something extraordinary. He looked at the emblem now glowing on the central pillar, protected by a layer of magic. And then, he said it, his voice full of pain, pride, and defiance. I did it, hero. The emblem was used to merge magic with the central pillar. Everyone watched as the ball of electricity gradually shrank. The henchmen holding the two girls exchanged terrified looks. The magic formation has stopped. Tears streaming down their faces. The two girls looked up and shouted, Ethan. The brown-haired youth frowned in surprise at Ethan's actions. This guy isn't even dodging my spear's tip. Leold reached out to check Ethan's breath but felt nothing. Calmly, he said, he's dead. The orange-haired man holding Blair barked. Don't move. Blair kept struggling, his face darkening as he yelled. Leold, one worried subordinate asked. Lord Leold, the magic formation seems to have stopped. What do we do now? Leold's face darkened. He clenched the blood-stained portrait in his trembling hands. Silent as he gazed at the bloodied woman in the painting, the orange-haired man panicked, calling out, Lord Leold. Leold muttered blankly, We've lost. He stared at the weak magic currents swirling around the pillar. Dazed, this young fortress guard knew very well that if he didn't avoid the spear's tip, he'd die. Yet he sacrificed his life to activate the device in the magic formation. We seriously underestimated his willpower. Leold closed his eyes and sighed. This time, we've truly lost. The curly-haired man frowned anxiously. Lord Leold, don't we still have that last option? Leold turned to analyze the pros and cons clearly. I know what you mean. But as I've said before, our knowledge of that method is very limited. There's a high chance it will cost lives without any gain. The group simultaneously knelt. Lord Leold, he suddenly spoke. You all. They cut him off loudly. If we didn't have that determination, we wouldn't have followed you this far. Even if there's only a sliver of hope, we're willing to try once more. 3 others nodded firmly in unison. After everything we faced, even the smallest hope for revenge is worth trying. The 2 men dragged the bound Blair over to the 2 girls and threw him down. Alice anxiously asked, Blair, are you all right? Isabella called out, shocked. Blair. He looked up, his face flushed, and said, I'm fine. Once settled, the group gathered, and the curly-haired man respectfully bowed. Lord Leold, we're ready. Please give the command. Leold's face darkened as he spoke. Everyone. He struck his chest forcefully and said firmly, help me one last time. I'm counting on all of you. Everyone responded solemnly in unison. Yes. Approaching the pillar, the group formed a circle. The pillar emitted crackling electric sparks. They clasped their hands together, channeling magic. Their combined magic condensed into a glowing sphere. Blair looked on, bewildered. What are they doing? Alice followed their movements and explained. It seems to be an ancient sacrificial magic, long lost. They're sacrificing their own spiritual energy to recharge the magic formation and restart it. But sacrificial magic usually cannot be reversed. So ultimately, all of them will dissipate like smoke. She finished speaking as their spiritual energy formed a magic circle. Then, everyone transferred their full magical power into the central pillar. Meanwhile, outside, the bald man looked up, alarmed. Why is it restoring? The elderly man with glasses looked at the leader ahead. The city lord. The barrier suddenly weakened earlier. So we increased our attacks. We were close to breaking it. But now, somehow, the barrier has been restored. The city lord looked confused and glanced at the shield. What on earth is happening? Leold, seeing the electric sphere gradually return to its original state, spoke happily. It's restarting. We've succeeded. The bodies of those who sacrificed themselves began to fade away. The curly-haired man looked at Leold calmly and said farewell. Farewell, Lord Leold. Leold gripped his staff tightly and replied. Farewell. Rest assured. I promise you all the city of Aba will be destroyed. The curly-haired man smiled peacefully and closed his eyes. Thank you, Lord. Alice shouted in astonishment. The magic formation has restarted. Isabella clenched her teeth angrily. Leold opened his eyes wide. Shocked. She glared at him and shouted. Why? Why do you have to go this far? What do you think you're doing? You want to destroy the city of Aba, with its hundreds of thousands of residents? You want them all to die? Do you think what you're doing is glorious? A single tear slid down Leold's cheek. Coldly, he said, You're right. I've never thought what we're doing is right. We're just fools consumed by anger and blinded by reason. Isabella choked and frowned, asking, Then why are you doing this? He sighed heavily, turned his back, and said, In half an hour, you, I, and the entire city of Aba will vanish from this world forever. So before that happens, I'll tell you my story. He thought silently. It's a long story. Where should I even begin? A fortress not far from here, engulfed in the smoke and flames of war. Thick dust billowed into the air. The Empire's flag hung tattered and torn. On top of the city walls, a group of soldiers, filthy from battle, sat down. The curly-haired man frowned and spoke to Leold. Captain, we've run out of arrows, and the food will only last us half a day more. Leold sat silently, a weary line of blood trickling down his face. He spoke tiredly. It seems the only way out is to break through the siege. We cannot die here. We must bring back the enemy's intelligence at all costs. The curly-haired man lowered his head, saddened. But Captain, can we really believe what they say? The kingdom already treats us like traitors. Besides, doesn't it seem strange? We've been fighting for 10 days straight, yet we haven't seen a single reinforcement. He looked at his injured comrades. Some had lost an eye. Others had died. He continued. Rumors have been spreading among the troops that the nobles up top are jealous of our reputation and intend to let us die here. Leold slammed his staff on the ground decisively. Shut your mouth, Oslo. You know that's enemy propaganda, right? Curly-haired Oslo stammered. But, enough. Leold interrupted angrily, placing his hand on his chest with a heroic tone. We have always fought for the safety of our kingdom. I am sure the kingdom would never betray us. If any of you want to surrender to the enemy, I would understand. Stay here if you want. I won't blame you. But those who trust me, prepare to break through this siege. The white-haired man clenched his fists with resolve. I believe in you, Captain. Let's break out. The curly-haired man nodded in agreement. I trust you too, Captain. The others around showed determined faces, cheering. Captain, we all believe in you. Please lead us to break the siege. Leold's eyes burned with determination as he smiled. Thank you all. Don't worry. The kingdom will not abandon us. Together, they followed him, breaking through the siege. Beyond the city walls, gray smoke rose as everyone shouted. Understood. 3 days later, outside the city of Aba, the city guards watched from afar as a group approached. Leold collapsed on the ground, smiling weakly. Finally, we've returned. He then fainted. The guards atop the walls reported. It's our people. Look carefully. Time passed. Leold was locked in a prison cell. He gripped the bars angrily and shouted. Hey, I am Leold, captain of the 9th Regiment of the Kingdom's army. Let me out. I have important intelligence to report. A nobleman swaggered forward. Soldier Leold, you are now a traitor to the kingdom. Understood? Your wife has been dealt with according to the kingdom's laws. Tomorrow, you will join them. This is the fate of all traitors. Leold was stunned. Wait, Lisa, how could this happen? He grabbed the nobleman's collar and shouted in fury. I am not a traitor. Let me out. Release Lisa and Gwen. I am not a traitor. The nobleman recoiled in fear, then sneered, adjusting his clothes. Ha, so you say you're not a traitor? Huh? Well, there are those above who want you dead. So you will die, and your whole family will perish in disgrace. He turned and left, adding, well, I've said what needed to be said. See you tomorrow at the execution grounds. Captain, Leold screamed in despair. Come back. I am not a traitor. Come back. He collapsed, broken. The jailer was startled by the noise, only to suddenly cough blood from his throat. Horrified, he cried out. Suddenly, keys jingled at the lock. Soldiers following Leold hurriedly spoke. Captain, we've come to rescue you. We just escaped from the adjacent cell. Those brats have turned us all into traitors. Leold curled up in the corner, muttering to himself. No, I am not. The white-haired man called out. "Captain!" A voice echoed outside. "They're here. Search the place quickly." The white-haired man gritted his teeth angrily. "Damn it, they're chasing us." The curly-haired man looked worried and said to him, "Captain, the city gates must be open by now. Let's get out of here. This place is no longer safe." The white-haired man helped Leold up. "Go ahead, don't worry. We will make sure the captain escaped safely." The young man anxiously glanced back, then followed the others out, weapons ready. Not long after, in a place within the city, 3 people had their heads covered with sacks and ropes tightened around their necks. Surrounded by a crowd of citizens, a clear voice announced, "Leold was once a heroic warrior, the pride of the kingdom of Nolan, but he betrayed the trust of the people, conspiring with the enemy and selling out our army's secrets, causing countless loyal soldiers to die needlessly." Holding up a charge sheet, the speaker read, "Yesterday, the traitor Leold and his accomplices infiltrated Aba City to cause chaos. Fortunately, our brave city guards detected and captured them in time." He continued, looking at the 3 captives. "However, last night while imprisoned, Leold and his followers killed the guards and escaped. Though 3 were recaptured, the leader Leold fled. By the kingdom's law, these 3 criminals will be executed immediately." With a signal, the ropes were pulled tight, suspending the 3 in midair. Their necks tightened until they died. The white-haired man in a cloak glared furiously. "Damn those fools who still praise them. They know nothing." The curly-haired man turned to him, whispering, "Captain Leold, the city gates should be open now. Let's get out before this place becomes unsafe." He spoke faintly. "You all go ahead." 2 companions came suddenly. "Captain, you've recovered." Leold replied wearily, "You go first. I need a moment alone." Under the pouring rain, he stood before a grave, speaking softly. "Lisa, Gwen, I'm sorry." A soldier, looking haggard, asked, "Captain, what do we do now?" Leold did not turn, answering quietly, "Don't call me captain anymore. I'm no longer your leader." Everyone frowned. "Captain!" Thunder roared as Leold gripped his staff firmly. "This country has betrayed us. It is now our enemy. All the pain we've suffered must be repaid in kind. Do you still trust me?" Under the rain, a flower bloomed freely. Back to the present, the 2 girls, tied to chairs, opened their eyes. Blair, however, kept his eyes shut tightly while sitting on the ground. Alice suddenly snapped awake and asked, "Was that just a hallucination?" Leold, sitting cross-legged opposite them, replied, "No, what you just saw was a memory of mine. I used synchronization magic with you all, so I could share part of my own memory." Hearing this, she was surprised. "Synchronization magic? And you can use that ancient magic you only heard of before?" Seeing Blair's face contort in discomfort, Isabella shouted, "Blair, are you okay? Wake up quickly." Alice looked worriedly over. Suddenly, he opened his eyes wide in horror and shouted, "Don't." Seeing this, she was stunned and called out, "Blair." Isabella's emotions gradually calmed. "Blair, you're awake. You scared me to death just now." Tears streamed down his face. Slightly surprised, he let out a soft sound. Leold looked at him and said, "It seems you are the one who sank deepest into my memory. Have you ever entered someone else's memory before?" He averted his gaze, remaining silent to avoid Leold's eyes. Leold stood up, leaning on his staff. "Well, I don't want to pry into your secrets. Anyway, all this will end soon." Taking advantage of Leold's moment of inattention, he cut the ropes and went to untie her. Leold walked to a pillar beside a glowing orb and began to explain. "Before joining the kingdom's army, I served in the military department in the city of Aba for a while. It was during that time I learned about this magic formation. So after deciding to take revenge on the kingdom, I brought my comrades here." Recalling the past, Leold opened the dusty door of a room. Everyone read through piles of papers. Frustrated and overwhelmed, we found a large number of ancient texts in a secret underground chamber and spent a great deal of time studying them. Thanks to those texts, we learned about some ancient magic arrays and how to control this magic formation. Even its history. He found a book recording various ancient magics. In the age of the ancient civilization, a great war broke out. The residents of Aba City were about to be defeated, so they built this massive self-destruct magic formation, turning their homes into traps designed to take the enemy down with them. Now, looking at the orb emitting powerful bolts of electricity, Leold said, "What happened to them in the end, victory or destruction, is not recorded. The only thing we can be sure of is that since its creation until now, this formation has never been activated." He stood there, flushed, revealing his intention. Once activated, in an instant, this formation will generate an enormous amount of magical energy. destroying all life within Aba City. Leold gripped his staff so tightly he was trembling. There will be no suffering, just one moment. And all will be released. Alice spoke doubtfully. Wait, though I can understand the pain you've endured. You can't take revenge by dragging innocent civilians in Aba into this. He turned around, sneering. What kind of joke is that? Sometimes even I don't understand myself. It's useless. Blair shouted out before the two girls. Puzzled. He wants revenge not only on the kingdom and the nobles but also on the ignorant masses who cheered when his comrades were executed. To him, no one is innocent. Leold confirmed. Looks like you really immersed yourself deep in there. Then he placed his hand on the pillar, passing through the illusions to enter inside. At that moment, the magical orb outside radiated an immense power. The earth trembled with shockwaves. An old man wearing glasses panicked and said, "It's broken. I'm afraid the magic formation has been activated." Elsewhere, Brittany was sitting in her study, writing notes. Hearing some cracking sounds, she looked up in confusion, seeing cracks appearing on the glass window. She said, "An earthquake?" Feeling something unusual, she frowned. "No, it's magical fluctuations, and very intense ones at that." On this side, the magic array had already been activated. The three looked up. Isabella lowered her head sadly. As expected, I still couldn't do it in the end. Sorry for dragging everyone here. She turned to him with a gentle smile and said, "That's right, Blair, actually, you and I." But Blair coldly cut her off. "Stop talking, Isabella." His face serious, he finished his calculations and said, "Wait for me to deal with him first. Then you can talk to me." She blinked, surprised. Huh? Leold ignored the magic breakers. Stein, Oslo, and Hal watched him and said, "Look, our anger has finally shaken the kingdom." Then he frowned, glaring fiercely, shouting, "Magic formation, activate." As soon as he finished, Blair punched him straight in the face, knocking him to the ground. The two girls gasped loudly. "Blair!" He clenched his fists, looking at him and said, "Sorry, I still had to stop you." Suddenly, the magical barrier stopped. Because of the recent earthquake, many people collapsed to the ground. The bald old man looked at it in disbelief and asked, "It stopped?" A soldier adjusted his helmet and sighed in relief to his comrade. "Who was holding his arm? I thought we were dead for sure this time." The city lord frowned in confusion, remaining silent, sensing someone approaching. The old man with glasses turned and recognized her. "You're here, Brittany?" She stepped forward, surrounded by streams of magic, her face full of worry. "There's a very strong magical fluctuation from the back mountain. My students are still in there. How are they?" Understanding his concern, the old man with glasses reassured her. "All the students have been evacuated home already. You're not part of the Magic Association, and this place is very dangerous now. You shouldn't have come." Brittany anxiously rubbed her face and said, "They've been evacuated home, but Blair and Isabella haven't come back yet." Suddenly realizing something, she shouted, "That's not right. At least 2 students haven't come out yet. Blair and Isabella are still inside." The old man with glasses looked confused and asked, "Isabella, the city lord's daughter?" The city lord heard this and thought silently. Isabella is still inside. He recalled years ago, the beloved little daughter smiling brightly in his arms. "Father, when I grow up, I want to join the military department." He smiled and asked, "Why is that?" A sparkle appeared in her eyes as she clasped her hands eagerly. "Because I'm from the Kravis family. One day, I'll protect you in Aba City." He happily hugged his daughter and laughed aloud. "Protecting even your father, huh?" The city lord frowned, a look of determination appearing in his eyes. Thinking, Isabella is in there, fighting for Aba City. Meanwhile, Leold sat up abruptly, confused, and asked, "How did you get free of the ropes?" He glared and clenched his teeth in rage. Thinking, I only knew the magic formation had started, I didn't notice him approaching. I was too careless. Blair looked him straight in the eye and answered frankly, "Then you should go ask the soldier from the military department you killed earlier." Taking advantage of the previous moment, he handed over a string of throwing knives and asked, "What's this?" Ethan put them into his hand and explained, "Take them. This is a proud tradition of our military department. We hide a throwing knife in our clothes to handle sudden emergencies anytime." Watching him turn and walk forward, Blair asked, "If I'm taking this knife, what about you?" Ethan pointed to himself confidently, smiling brightly. "Don't worry, if trouble comes, I run fast. It'll work better for you to use it." Leold looked at him and understood. He showed a disdainful smile and sneered, "I forgot the military department's tradition again. He really is a remarkable junior." Then facing Blair, he said, "Although you've entered my memories, you still choose to stop me, right?" Blair clenched his fists in a fighting stance and replied, "Yes." Leold raised his staff angrily, glaring fiercely. "Looks like we both have our own beliefs. I take back what I said before, you truly have the fighting spirit. Enough talk, let's have a decisive battle." Leold raised his staff higher, summoning power. A fireball condensed with incantations. "O fire element throughout the world, heed my call, descend upon this place." Seeing this, the two girls were shocked. Alice warned, "Blair, be careful, he's casting large area magic." Blair wiped the dirt off his face and spoke calmly. "Don't worry, I've thought of a way to deal with this." Then he swung his magic staff and cast forward. Firestorm. Streams of blazing fire shot straight toward him. Blair created a magic shield. The flames hit the barrier, penetrating inside but quickly fading. Seeing this, the two girls were amazed. They imagined a person standing inside a protective dome with no air. Thinking, "I was right, even magical fire needs oxygen to keep burning. If I remove all the air around the head, I can neutralize fire magic when it gets close." Leold's eyes widened in disbelief and anger. "My magic just vanished instantly? Could the elemental control rights have been taken by him? That can't be, his spiritual power isn't that strong. What on earth happened?" Glancing to the side, in the moment Leold was unprepared. A fire blast shot straight at him. He grit his teeth, horrified, and dodged. In his heart, he confirmed his previous thought. "This time, I definitely wasn't mistaken. He can use magic without incantations or preparation." Then Blair clenched his fists tightly and rushed forward. To Leold's terrified expression, "Looks like he wasn't ready when I closed in on him." Blair landed a punch directly on his face, causing him to cough up blood. Leold fell backward, and his staff slipped right out of his hand. Blair saw it flying through the air. He widened his eyes, determination flashing in them as he thought, "I absolutely can't give him a chance to react." He leapt up and grabbed the staff, but when he noticed the crystal on the staff had disappeared, suspicion crept in. How could the staff lose its crystal? There must be some lingering magic here. Leold slowly stood up, holding a dagger, and said, "Your thinking is always so simple. From the start, my dagger has been hidden inside the staff. Didn't expect you'd push me this far." He raised the dagger and charged at Blair, slashing across the wound Blair was bandaging. Blair didn't have time to react. Horrified by the attack, gripping the bleeding wound, his face contorted in pain as he collapsed to the ground. Without a trace of mercy, Leold stomped on Blair's injured side, arrogantly lecturing him. "Young one, you've truly surprised me, not just with your power but with how fast you learn. Yet you still lack the decisiveness you had the chance to gain." Leold raised the dagger triumphantly and said, "Remember, on the battlefield, killing your opponent is the greatest respect you can show." Blood dripped from the dagger's blade onto Blair's face. Gritting his teeth, Blair whispered, "Is this the end?" Suddenly, two streams of magical fire shot toward Leold. His eyes widened as he realized what was happening, but it was already too late. The flames struck him, causing a huge explosion. It was Isabella and Alice attacking. Blair said seriously, "A Kravis will never flee the battlefield." Watching Leold desperately try to resist the magic, Blair thought, "Well done, Isabella and Alice, risking everything this once." They drained the air around Leold. Horrified, Leold looked at the magic being sucked into Blair's bloodied palms. He couldn't believe it. Then he loosened his grip on the dagger, which dropped to the ground. Clutching his throat, his face turning purple, eyes bulging, struggling to breathe, he panicked. "I can't speak or breathe, what has he done?" Unable to breathe, Leold began coughing violently. Blair stepped forward, magic swirling in his hand, and said plainly, "Sorry, Leold, you're right. Killing your enemy is the greatest respect." Leold was sweating profusely, clutching his cloak with trembling hands. "I've failed again." He crawled forward, raising a hand weakly, then collapsed, motionless. The two girls rushed over. Isabella worriedly asked about Blair's injury. He replied, "I'm fine. Luckily, you two were here just now." The electric magic orb slowly shrank, becoming the size of a ping-pong ball before dissipating. Everyone looked up at the pillar as Alice analyzed. "It seems after accumulating enough energy, if the magic formation doesn't receive a command to activate, it automatically shuts down." Isabella smiled brightly and said, "That means we succeeded." She happily grabbed Blair's arm, swaying it gently. "Best of all, we succeeded, we've protected Aba City." Blair groaned in pain from her movement. "Ah, don't shake it, don't shake it." Suddenly, the space around them trembled, and chunks of earth began falling. Alice looked up and said, "I forgot. Many magic formations self-destruct after deactivating to prevent enemies from exploiting them. Isabella blinked in confusion. Self-destruct means? Alice answered, alarmed. Most likely the magic formation and the tunnel itself will self-destruct together. A huge stone fell. Blair, startled and, along with the two girls, turned pale and fled. Run! Seeing Alice still standing confused, Blair snapped. What are you waiting for? This is no time for research, run! The pillar lost its magical energy. Its glowing light vanished, and it cracked in half. Blair grit his teeth in frustration. He glanced at Ethan's body and said sadly, "Goodbye, Ethan, goodbye, Leold." Outside, the barrier gradually dissolved. Everyone was filled with joy. The old man with glasses cheerfully exclaimed, "The barrier's gone." Brittany dashed forward like an arrow, leaving everyone bewildered. Magic surrounded her as she shot off, becoming a bright star in the sky. The old man smiled and remarked, "Brittany is really too impatient." The city lord turned and issued an order. The barrier is lifted. Everyone, prepared to enter the academy's back mountain to hunt down the enemy and rescue the students and civilians. The soldiers shouted in unison, "Yes, sir." The city lord's eyes shone with determination as he thought, Isabella must be safe. Inside the cave, rocks were continuously raining down like heavy rain. The three of them ran with all their might. Seeing the shaky frame above their heads, Isabella shouted in panic, "This isn't good. It's about to collapse. Move back quickly." The frame fell, sending up a thick cloud of dust and debris. The two girls coughed harshly. Out of the dust appeared a figure. It was Blair. He gritted his teeth and pressed his hand firmly against the wound in his abdomen as he took a step forward. Someone called out, "Blair." She placed a hand on his shoulder, worry clear in her voice. "You've been hit, haven't you?" He tried to endure the pain and answered, "It's more than just a sore shoulder." Alice looked at the pile of rubble blocking their path and spoke with despair. "This place is collapsing too. We can't get out this way." The two girls sat down beside him. Looking at the rubble, Blair suddenly had an idea. There were fewer collapses here than in other parts of the cave. Maybe they could use explosion magic to blow the rocks apart and find a way out. As if reading his thoughts, Isabella sighed in frustration. "It's useless. How many fireballs would it take? We don't have nearly enough mana for that." Large and small boulders piled on top of each other blocked their way. Blair stood up to encourage the two. "I have a plan. I'm sure you both have learned fire shield magic, right? We'll have to put everything into it soon." Isabella and Alice said in unison. "All right." Blair formed his hands, gathering air into a sphere. A calculating look appeared in his eyes as he smirked slightly. Draw in the air. He focused his mind and thought. Oxygen concentration in air is between 4 and 70%. When combined with fire, it will. Then he released a stream of violet fire magic, striking directly into the rubble, causing a massive explosion. The three of them combined their magic, supporting each other. The smoke slowly cleared, revealing light ahead. "It worked," Blair said. Isabella looked amazed. "How did you do that? Has Tranlac already reached the rank of Grand Mage?" Morning sunlight began to peek over the sky. A hand reached up from the cave entrance. They had finally crawled out. The first to climb up was Alice, looking exhausted. Right after came Isabella. By this point, Blair was nearly drained of energy and breathed out wearily. The two girls reached out to help him up. Seeing his state, Isabella asked with concern, "Blair, are you okay?" He held his wound and raised a hand, his voice weak but reassuring. "Don't worry, I'm fine." When he let go of the wound, blood began to seep through. He gritted his teeth and forced himself on, thinking, "Still not at my limit yet." He planted his feet on the rock wall and began to climb. Unfortunately, he slipped and fell into a deep pit. Isabella screamed. "Blair!" Despair washed over him as he thought, could this be the end? Suddenly, someone caught his arm. His vision blurred, but he still recognized who it was, Brittany. Time passed. In a hospital room, three people gathered around a bed, waiting. Blair slowly opened his eyes and groaned softly. He moved up a little, trembling, his injured arm in a cast. He frowned and gritted his teeth, enduring the pain as he wondered, "Where am I? This hurts so much." Isabella woke up, rubbing her eyes and said, "Blair, just lie still." Then she happily grabbed his arm and exclaimed, "Blair, you're awake." The other two were equally overjoyed. She shook him vigorously with a loud laugh. "Finally, you're awake. That's great." He couldn't resist, groaning weakly. "Ouch, ouch, ouch. Stop shaking me or I might really die." Brittany sat beside the bed, speaking gently. "Luckily, your injury wasn't fatal. You just lost a lot of blood at the time. For the next few days, just rest assured and recover. I'll ask for leave on your behalf at the academy. He frowned and hesitated. Brittany. About Leold, actually. She understood without words, closing her eyes in helplessness. I've heard Isabella and Alice's account already. But these things might involve the upper classes of the kingdom. It's not something we can decide. If you mention this outside, it might. Blair quickly added. That's true. There are many things in this world that just can't be changed. Suddenly, the door creaked open. Everyone turned curiously toward the sound. The person who entered was the city lord, who smiled and introduced himself. Blair, sorry to disturb your rest. I'm Austin, Isabella's father. She gasped. Father, you came here? He looked at Blair with a questioning expression and said, City Lord, may I ask why you've come to see me? The Lord placed his hand on his chest and bowed respectfully. You saved Isabella and Aba City. I came to express my sincere gratitude, thank you. Blair was startled but rubbed his hands politely. City Lord, there's no need for thanks. He didn't look up and added. Also, I have a somewhat bold request. I'd like to invite you to the Kravis family banquet tomorrow evening. Blair's eyes widened in surprise. What? In Isabella's mind, a few words already stood out. Attend the banquet. Meet the parents, family. Her face flushed with embarrassment as she thought. Family. Then she exclaimed. What? The next afternoon, Blair loosened his collar and said, Isabella, although I agreed to attend the banquet. Looking at his elegant, formal outfit, she couldn't help but frown and complain. But this suit just feels off. She wore a beautiful dress and replied, That's because you usually dress so casually. Besides, tonight's not just my parents attending, officials and noble families from the city will be there too. Blair was startled. I thought it was just a family banquet. Why are so many people coming? She sighed. My family's banquet is always like this. Understanding the situation, he frowned slightly but accepted it. That makes sense. After all, the position of Aba City Lord has been passed down through the Kravis family for generations. It's no surprise the banquet is a high society event. His face suddenly flushed red as he rubbed his chin, thinking to himself, wait, Isabella is the only child of the city lord. Unless something unexpected happens, she's the next city lord. If I marry Isabella, then I could basically do whatever I want in Aba. He pictured a happy future, embracing his wife Isabella and their child. And my child would be the next in line to rule Aba. He paused, considering, but to inherit the city lord title, the child must carry the Kravis name. I'm not exactly traditional. I could accept the child taking the mother's surname, but Kravis is still better. Unless I have twins, one with the Kravis name, one with the Tran name. Perfect. Suddenly, a hand pinched his ear, cutting off his thoughts. Hey, why are you pinching my ear? Blair yelped in pain. Isabella gave him an annoyed but knowing look. You're definitely thinking about something silly again. What were you just thinking about? Blair panicked. Don't bother me. I was just thinking, if there were two kids. His face flushed bright red as he quickly scrambled for an excuse. No, I have a friend. Really just a friend. His wife is about to have twins. And he asked me to help think of baby names. Isabella looked down shyly. Oh, okay. I thought, no, never mind. So, have you thought of names yet? Haven't you helped your friend yet? Blair scratched his head and forced a smile. Not yet. They want one child to carry the father's name and the other the mother's. They're still deciding. Hearing that, she studied him carefully. Right, Blair, could you accept your child taking the mother's surname? He answered. If there were two kids, I think I could. The sun was setting, painting the sky with a breathtaking sunset as the two walked toward the castle. She waved her hand and clasped it behind her back to hide her excitement. Okay, then, good luck thinking of names for your friend's babies. Walking side by side like a destined couple, she looked ahead cheerfully and called out, Mother. A woman with blonde hair in a magnificent dress turned around and said, Saw. And this must be Blair, right? Everyone behind them looked on in amazement. He bowed respectfully. Good evening, Lady Kravis. She stepped forward, delighted and warm. Thank you for saving Saw. She's talked about you to me many times. Isabella snapped angrily. Mom, don't say nonsense. Then a group of girls surrounded him. A white-haired girl asked, You're the one who saved Saw and the Herman family's young lady. Right? A purple-haired girl covered her mouth in admiration. He's so handsome. A girl with braided hair nodded approvingly. Brave and capable young men like you are rare these days. A tall girl laughed teasingly. Saw really has an eye for talent. A pink-haired girl added. Saw's never brought a boy home before. Surrounded by many, Blair felt awkward and flustered. About that, seeing this, Isabella grabbed his wrist. Mom, come meet Blair's father first. The purple-haired girl continued teasing. Saw, what are you afraid of? No one's going to snatch him away. Isabella tugged him away. Come on. Hey, slow down, Blair protested, but she only wanted to cover his mouth. Stop talking so much. Hurry up. Meanwhile, in a nearby office illuminated by an ornate chandelier, someone asked, so you think Walter is scheming something? A white-haired young man sitting across replied, yes, that's why I came to inform you. The city lord pondered seriously. Aba City is the Kravis family's stronghold, passed down for centuries. You don't really think a mere finance minister like Walter could shake us? The young man looked him straight in the eyes and explained the current situation. That used to be true. But in recent years, the capital has been trying to reclaim the power of the city lords. Now, all cities outside the capital, including Aba, no longer control their finances or military. These are managed by officials sent directly from the capital. He continued in a low voice about complicated relations. Marquis Walter isn't just the city's finance minister, he's also the brother of the current queen. He explained why this was dangerous. As you know, every year the capital sends tax inspectors to audit cities. They have great power, and if they find any tax issues, even the city lord can be arrested on the spot. He went on, reliable sources tell me that Marquis Walter and the tax officials have held secret talks here for several days. They're likely plotting something against you. The lord closed his eyes, tired but steadying himself. I understand, thank you for the warning. Abel Edward, I will be careful. The young man smiled and stood up. I won't keep you any longer. I'll take my leave. Suddenly the lord stopped him. Wait, why did you choose to tell me all this? The young man paused, then replied, for the peace of the Edward family and your lordship. We need time. If Aba City faces turmoil now, it will be very difficult for us. The lord frowned but said nothing more. As the young man stepped outside, a servant helped him put on his coat. At that moment, Isabella and Blair arrived at the door. Father, I brought Blair here. Hearing the name Abel Edward, the young man's eyes sharpened. He put on his hat with a smirk, thinking, Blair always shows up wherever trouble happens. Good luck to you. Inside the room, Austin looked sternly at the two people before him. Seeing his father staring silently, Isabella finally broke the quiet atmosphere. Father, why aren't you saying anything? He frowned and spoke to her. Saw, you go outside for a moment. I have a few things to discuss privately with Blair. Alright, I'll step outside then. She smiled cheerfully at Blair. Blair followed her and said, I'll come find you when I'm done. The father sat down, watching them talk. Isabella waved sweetly. I'll be waiting for you outside. Blair replied, got it. Austin's face darkened as he put on a serious expression and said, First, I want to thank you for protecting Isabella. Without you, I might have lost her. Blair replied calmly. A real man wouldn't just run off and leave a woman behind. The city lord stood in the shadows, drawing his sword. Saw said you care a lot about her at school. Blair looked puzzled, seeing the sword drawn partway. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he nervously answered. We're all students of Miss Brittany. We're supposed to help each other. Austin raised the sword, pressing him to be honest. So, you're saying everything Saw said is true? Blair regained his composure and answered. That's just what anyone should do. Without another word, Austin unsheathed the sword fully. His whole body burned with anger as he asked sharply. Saw said you kissed her, hugged her, and even bullied her, is that true? Blair was bewildered. When did I kiss her? Austin scowled and shouted. So you did hug and bully her? Then, Blair boldly questioned. Did you call me here just to talk about this? Austin was stunned, then put away his sword and returned to a calm demeanor. You're the first young man to speak to me like that. He joked. Saw is my only daughter. I hope you, Blair, won't take it too seriously. He extended his hand to make peace. From now on, Saw will need your care and help. Blair agreed and shook his hand. Austin then leaned in to whisper. Yes, this is our private conversation. Understanding his meaning, Blair nodded easily. I understand, and I promise Isabella won't find out. Later, in the front yard of the mansion, an outdoor banquet was fully prepared, and everyone gathered happily. Isabella turned to ask, Blair, what did my father say to you earlier? He picked up his knife and fork, looking thoughtful. That's a secret between men. She rolled her eyes and puffed her cheeks in annoyance. You. She unleashed her childish anger on him. Blair raised his hands defensively, shouting, Don't hit me. Austin closed his eyes, pretending not to see this. A white-haired young man approached and quietly said to Austin, City Lord, the finance minister and the tax inspectors have arrived looking for you. A stout man adorned with jeweled rings and dressed in noble attire. though his beer belly was obvious, spoke loudly and arrogantly. "Lord Austin, you're hosting such a grand banquet, why wasn't I invited?" Austin stood, irritated, and replied, "Apologies, Finance Minister. This is just a private family banquet. I didn't want to trouble you or the tax inspectors with old business." The city lord's wife looked over. The fat man's face twisted with malicious intent as he sneered. "It's not about old business. The tax inspectors just wanted to discuss your issues." A blond man behind spoke coldly. "That's right, Marquis Walter and I have discussed Lord Austin in detail. I now suspect you of illegal activities concerning taxes, and I'm here to conduct an investigation." Austin frowned darkly and requested, "Tax inspectors, please allow me to finish this family banquet first." The man smiled slyly, his tone threatening. "Lord Austin, I hope I don't have to say this again. Remember, I represent the capital." The guests at the banquet looked around anxiously. A brown-haired girl asked, "What's going on?" The white-haired man explained, "The tax inspectors are sent from the capital." Blair looked surprised as he noticed Isabella's hand trembling on his leg. She was visibly scared, her whole body shaking. Everyone at the banquet table was buzzing with whispers. The fat man raised his head arrogantly and spoke up. "Lord Austin, since we once worked together, I advise you not to embarrass yourself in front of everyone like this. You should cooperate with the investigation quietly." Austin snapped angrily. "You?" The city lord's wife turned to smoothly handle the guests. "Sorry everyone, tonight's banquet ends here. Austin has urgent matters to attend to. We'll meet again another time." Seeing Isabella still trying to hold back her emotions, Blair stood up worriedly and said, "Isabella, let's leave here first." Looking up, he noticed two people standing at a distance and thought to himself, "Calvin, Brady, why are they here too?" The sky gradually shifted color as the last rays of sunlight spilled over the hallway. She grabbed his wrist and pulled him along. Noticing her troubled mood, Blair asked with concern, "Isabella, are you okay? That's the tax officer from the capital. This time, the city lord is in serious trouble." A voice rang out, "If he's not careful, he'll be dismissed, investigated, and thrown in jail." Isabella's steps slowed as she listened to the crowd's murmurs. "This Walter guy, since he's the queen's younger brother, has been running rampant, causing chaos with the tax affairs in Aba City." The girl in the brown dress spoke angrily. "The city lord has confronted him many times, and now he even dares to humiliate him here." "Yes, everyone in Aba knows Walter never obeys the city lord when it comes to taxes." The girl in blue added with frustration. "Clearly, the tax officers have been bribed and want to frame the city lord." The short-haired girl sighed. No one expected the Kravis family, so mighty in Aba for years, would decline this way. The red-haired girl frowned worriedly. Feeling her hand grip tighten, Blair looked at her in confusion and called, "Isabella." Then his eyes widened in shock. A tear fell. Her face flushed red as she bit her lip, tears brimming with anguish. Seeing this, Blair panicked and hurriedly asked, "What's wrong, Isabella?" She rushed forward, hugging him tightly, words caught in her throat. Clinging to his arm, she sobbed, "Blair, my father, what should I do?" He frowned and comforted her. "Don't worry, Isabella." Watching the crystal-clear tear fall to the ground, he vowed silently, "I won't let your father come to harm." Meanwhile, two men were talking nearby. Blair ran over and called out, "Guild leader Calvin, Guild leader Brady." The man in white said, "Blair, what are you doing here?" He exhaled wearily. "The city lord is my friend's father. It's been a while." Calvin helped him up. "Oh, right, I almost forgot. Miss Isabella is your friend." The man in green smiled warmly. "So you're the Blair who saved Aba City. We're honored to meet you." Blair calmly asked about the recent events. "Guild leader Calvin, Guild leader Brady, why are you here? And why are you with that tax officer?" Calvin laughed and raised his hand to explain. "This tax officer is actually a vice guild leader in the Central Mathematical Association. Our branches everywhere must cooperate with them to complete tasks. As for guild leader Brady, the safety of tax officers is always the responsibility of the Magic Association. So of course, he had to come too." Blair asked suspiciously, "If it's a tax issue, shouldn't you go to the Minister of Finance? Why investigate the city lord?" Calvin answered seriously, "The Minister of Finance manages the budget but is still subordinate to the city lord. All official orders concerning tax in Aba are issued by City Lord Austin." So naturally, Blair nodded, having understood, but looked straight at him and challenged, "Guild leader Calvin, do you believe what you just said?" Calvin scratched his face nervously and glanced away, trying to avoid eye contact. "Blair, We're just scholars, not tax officers. It's not appropriate for us to meddle in the kingdom's affairs. Blair stared at the two men and said, I can understand your worries. That's right. Some time ago, a man named Tranlac solved all the Mathematical Association's questions and even registered a new type of magic with the Magic Association. Do you remember? Calvin exclaimed in surprise. Of course, we remember. Tranlac is now recognized as the god of mathematics across the continent. Blair, you've heard the legend about him, haven't you? Brady suddenly interrupted, alarmed. Wait a minute. He clenched his fist and narrowed his eyes suspiciously. The new magic that Tranlac proved hasn't even been revealed to the public yet. How do you know about it? Blair replied calmly. I am Tranlac. Those words shocked the two men, their eyes widened. Jaws dropped. Their faces turned pale, sweat pouring down. Calvin stammered fearfully. Blair, this joke is a bit? Blair smiled warmly and explained. At that time, I solved a total of 23 problems with a total prize of 535 gold coins. But since it was just our first cooperation, I left the last few coins and only took 530 gold. As for that mixed magic, it's a simple fusion of water sphere and fire sphere magic. If you want, I can demonstrate it right here. Calvin was startled, suddenly dropped to his knees in awe, and shouted, Great God Lack, I was blind to doubt your identity before. Please forgive me. Brady rubbed his head, blushing with embarrassment. So it's really you. No wonder you could defeat Leold. It wasn't a coincidence after all. Calvin's nose turned red as he said, Great God Lack, please tell us what you need. Even my life is at your disposal. Blair helped him up, smiling. My life isn't necessary. It's just that the tax officers and the Minister of Finance have made me very unhappy. I hope I never have to see them in Aba again. The two men gestured confidently. Don't worry. Tonight, those two will completely disappear. Brady added, though the Magic Association is responsible for protection, we also sometimes make mistakes. Like tonight, this whole situation made Blair feel helpless. The two men looked at him with great admiration, seeing them wag their tails like dogs. Blair felt helpless. Normally, these two appeared dignified and respectable. How had they suddenly turned into street thugs? Calvin and Brady imagined him as a god descended to earth, bringing extraordinary things, and knelt down. Tranlac, god of Lorraine, our revered god of mathematics. They pictured the math tower in their minds. Deep inside, they silently confirmed, Tranlac is Lorraine's luck. Its dazzling light, its hope. For great God Lack, Walter and Cesar can only go to hell today. Blair put his hand on their shoulders, frowned, and spoke directly. The important thing is Walter. He's the root of the tax problem. You two understand, right? Both of them scowled, put on fierce looks, and answered in unison. We understand. Kill his whole family. This left Blair stunned and confused. Not understanding, he sighed and explained his intention. I don't want to take his life. I just want him gone from Aba City, out of sight. Realizing they misunderstood, they awkwardly said, so that's what Great God Lack meant. Got it. Blair turned and walked away, then stopped and reminded them. Oh, right, don't tell anyone about my identity. I want to keep my life normal. After that, Calvin and Brady quickly approached the crowd. With a grim face and serious tone, Calvin said, Vice Guild Leader Cesar, please come with me. I have something important to discuss with you. He raised his hand to remind. City Lord Austin, please stay here. I have some matters to settle first. After walking a bit, Calvin frowned and suggested, Vice Guild Leader Cesar, Walter is no longer suitable for the position of Minister of Finance in Aba. Cesar frowned angrily and rejected. Calvin, this isn't your decision to make. He sneered mockingly and taunted loudly. What's the matter? Is the rumor true? Then, he fell into confusion, struggling to understand. A hand rested on his shoulder. It was Brady, who looked at him and teased. So you like types like Walter? Huh? Don't you find him annoying? After hearing this, Cesar was shaken and stunned. He shoved Brady angrily and shouted, Are you crazy? I'm just doing my duty. I'm not. Brady cut in with a serious expression. I'm afraid this isn't your decision. Someone higher up wants Walter out of Aba. If you don't agree, I won't be able to guarantee your safety anymore. Calvin added, Also, don't forget you're a former vice guild leader of the Mathematical Association first. Then a tax officer of the kingdom. That person affects the survival and development of the guild. I advise you to decide wisely and not drag the guild into this. Hearing this, Caesar's face turned pale, and he lowered his head. In silent anger, he clenched his fists tightly. Then he turned to look at the crowd and glared before snapping his fingers downwards. Seize Minister of Finance Walter and take him away. as two subordinates grabbed him. He roared in anger. "Cesar, are you crazy? Don't arrest Austin, arrest me instead." He growled. "Shut his mouth for me." When it was done, Cesar bowed slightly, placed his hand on his chest, and carefully said, "City Lord Austin, we have evidence that Walter embezzled the kingdom's tax money. Sorry for troubling everyone. We'll take our leave." The city lord looked puzzled at the scene. The city lord's wife was quite surprised by what she saw. She clearly noticed his figure turning back. "We had to hurry home. Isabella will pinch my ear again." Seeing his wife giggle while covering her mouth, he asked, "What's wrong with you?" She raised 2 glasses of wine and handed one to him. "Don't you get it yet?" They clinked glasses, and she sighed. "Blair is a good child." Under the bright moonlight, the two stood happily facing each other. Meanwhile, Isabella sat alone on the long chair. Blair. Gentle petals floated softly in the breeze. A hand tenderly brushed through her hair. Blair looked at her with warmth. Isabella lifted her gaze, cheeks tinged with pink, and the atmosphere grew harmonious. She wiped away a tear and shyly asked, "Blair, why did you come here? How are my parents doing?" He stroked his own hair, glanced away, avoiding her eyes. "It's all settled. I asked a friend to help. Walter was taken away by the tax officials." Isabella blinked in surprise. "What?" He looked at her and said, "It seems it's time for Aba City's Minister of Finance to be replaced." Her face showed disbelief. "How is that possible? Aren't the tax officials in the same faction as Walter?" Blair smiled and waved his hand. "Maybe my friend is just a bit more skilled than the tax officials." Her eyes sparkled with curiosity, her expression full of intrigue. "Who is this friend you mentioned?" He leaned in and put a finger near her lips. "You're asking too many questions." Suddenly, Isabella pressed a quick kiss on his cheek. Blair jumped, cheeks burning red, heart pounding wildly. Then she stood up quickly and ran off. "Come on, the banquet isn't over yet." She didn't notice his ears reddening in his speechless state. At the party, a few were still chatting. After a bet, 2 young men grabbed each other by the hair. Arguing loudly, the man in green shouted, "City Lord Austin won, so take the silver coins." The man in orange refused to let go, yelling, "Did you know beforehand? I spit on that." His purse was ripped open, coins scattering on the ground, each silver coin rolling away. Seeing her run toward the crowd, Blair followed anxiously. "Isabella, wait." But bad luck struck. She stepped on a silver coin, slipped, and fell backward. Blair panicked and rushed forward, reaching out. "Isabella." She was startled and pale. He hurried to catch her but only managed to grab a piece of her sleeve. Seeing her, Blair's eyes widened in fear as the fabric slipped through his fingers. "Sorry." Her parents looked surprised. She sat on the ground, clutching her dress, 2 tears glistening at the corners of her eyes. Feeling embarrassed, she called out loudly, "Blair." Isabella sobbed, frustrated, tears streaming like a waterfall. Blair awkwardly stammered, I didn't mean to." She didn't want to hear any scolding. "You're not even human," her parents exclaimed in shock upon seeing this. She covered her chest, her face as red as a tomato, angrily shaking her fist in the air. "You did it on purpose. You jerk." Blair grabbed her wrist, confused and flustered. "I really didn't. I was just trying to catch you. Who knew you'd trip yourself?" Isabella's eyes widened in annoyance. Suddenly, she began chanting a spell, her whole body surrounded by magical flames. "O fire elementals scattered across the world, hear my summoning, descend upon this place." The city lord's wife called out a few words. Interrupting, Blair turned, startled, as the flames around Isabella gradually faded. Isabella, embarrassed but furious, gritted her teeth. "Blair, you." He turned back and forth nervously, explaining to the 3 adults. "I swear, I didn't see anything, I didn't see a thing." This only made her angrier, pointing a finger to scold. You. Blair dodged, pretending not to hear, looking away and whistling. The city lord's wife smiled happily. "You're young." He walked away but glanced back quietly and silently. Austin frowned, annoyed, and said, "Blair, we still have some things to discuss. Please come with me for a moment." He followed Austin. The city lord's wife teased her daughter. "This time Blair really helped your father with a big matter. Looks like our Saw has quite the charm." Isabella, irritated, put her hands on her hips and walked away. Who cares about him? In a lavish room, a bottle of wine and 2 glasses sat on the table. Austin said, "I truly didn't expect tonight's events. Blair, you really are something else." Blair replied, "It seems the city lord already figured it out. But it's not as complicated as you think. It's just that the 2 guild leaders, Calvin and Brady, owed me a favor, and this time, they paid it back." Blair rubbed his head awkwardly. Austin stared at him, doubtful, and spoke. To get Cesar to cross Walter is no small matter. He lifted a glass of wine toward Blair, who caught it and explained. Protecting my senior Isabella is an honor. As for the Minister of Finance, 3 months ago, he caused chaos with tax policies in Aba City, making pork prices quadruple. Truly detestable. Austin asked suspiciously. Is that the only reason? Blair sat opposite him and answered. City Lord, when pork prices skyrocket, you can imagine how much everything else rises in Aba. Tax collection affects the lives of the people. Letting the minister collect taxes arbitrarily only makes life harder. He asked confidently, when the people of this city can't even afford to eat, what hope does this city have? Austin candidly accepted the blame. You're right, I share some responsibility for this. Blair said. It's good you understand, no need to blame yourself. Behind the door, 2 people peeked inside, whispering, what exactly are they talking about? So secretive. They raised their glasses. Austin laughed cheerfully. Thanks for the reminder, Blair. I'll definitely keep a closer eye on the new Minister of Finance. Blair replied. Then I'm at ease, City Lord. Suddenly, a hand pushed Isabella's back. She froze, startled. Without thinking, she moved straight toward Blair. Blair's eyes widened in surprise as her head bumped his shoulder, causing the glass in her hand to slip. Wine spilled, staining both their clothes. Just then, the city lord's wife entered cheerfully and gently scolded. Saw, how careless. Quickly take Blair to change clothes. Seeing their soaked outfits and red faces, she added, Saw, take Blair to change, and arrange a room for him while you're at it. She smiled warmly and said, let's decide that. Blair felt awkward. Madam Kravis, Isabella, embarrassed, asked, Mom, what? Then the lady pushed her husband forward, waving, Blair, thank you for today. Sleep well and have sweet dreams. A little later, in a room where they had changed clothes, Blair scratched his face awkwardly. Senior, so about tonight? Isabella strode toward the door. What do you mean, about tonight? I'm leaving. He looked confused but followed her. The door to the next room opened, and 2 people watched their footsteps disappear. Back in the room, the city lord's wife looked at Austin, who was deep in thought, and asked, what's wrong? He wore a serious expression and said, the tax official changed his mind, it really was because of Blair. But Blair said it's because Calvin owed him a favor. Still, I feel there's more to this than meets the eye. The city lord's wife smiled warmly, holding her cheek. Everyone has their secrets, as long as he treats Saw well. That's all that matters. Austin looked puzzled. How do you know Saw likes him? She squinted happily. Do I even need to say? She used to say she wanted to go to the capital city. But this year she didn't apply to any of the big academies there. Isn't it obvious she's waiting a year just to go with Blair? Austin crossed his arms and made up an excuse. That's because she doesn't want to be far from us. She saw his expression and laughed behind her hand. Then she clung to his arm. Beaming, Austin sighed. All right, stop worrying about Saw. She's so innocent. Going to the capital, I worry she'll get bullied. He wasn't done sulking yet, closing his eyes with a sigh. In a room, Blair lay on the bed, holding a silver coin up and falling into thought. Originally, he used the identity of Tranlac to avoid trouble, but now it seemed that identity had another use. Recalling the disdainful looks from that man, he thought silently. Walter is the younger brother of the queen before Austin. He can break the rules and crush everything. He remembered how the 2 men were stunned and knelt when they learned his identity. Blair thought, Tranlac is the god of the math guild. Calvin reveres him like a true deity. Gods don't care about morals. When Calvin gave a cold glance at the silenced count who was dragged away, Blair mused. A single word from the god could make Walter vanish from the world. Changing the rules. A large hand reached out to grab a terrified Walter who was running away, deciding the fate of others. Then the man was caught and collapsed, lifeless. In Blair's mind appeared a figure, Isabella, protecting oneself and those important. His eyes focused on his hand. Blair thought, to live well in this world, one needs high status and strength enough to wipe out everything. The silver coin was engraved with a lion wearing a crown, surrounded by leaves. Suddenly, a noise from the window broke his thoughts. Blair went over and opened it. Before him was Isabella, looking as beautiful as a blooming rose. She jumped inside and climbed onto the bed. He awkwardly asked, why didn't you come through the front door? She opened her eyes wide, scolding, are you stupid? Coming through the front door means everyone would see. He looked puzzled, a bit surprised, and said, I'm not doing anything shady. Jumping through the window only makes people misunderstand more. Isabella sat on the bed, acting adorable, her whole being radiant, and said, So, Blair, is this your first time seeing such a big bed? Excited and can't sleep? He casually pointed to her dress. Exactly, senior. If you took this off, I'd be even more excited. She blushed, covering her chest, annoyed. You pervert, I came to ask you something. Hearing this, he sat beside her. Isabella asked something she'd always been curious about. Tell me, what did my father say to you today? Blair crossed his arms, blushing, looking away. Really want to know? She was eager. Come on, just tell me. He glanced down at her chest and cleared his throat. He said you're still young. The city lord wants me to watch over you more closely. She looked confused. I'm young? Where? Following his gaze, she suddenly understood, her face turning bright red. Isabella stood up abruptly, furious, shouting, All right, Blair. He was shocked and quickly tried to explain. Wait, let me explain. She embarrassedly kicked him under the table, yelling, I don't want to hear anything from you. You pervert. He was stepped on, blushing and stunned. Frustrated, she huffed and stormed straight to the window. If I'd known, I wouldn't have come. It only ruined my mood. Blair stepped forward and grabbed her hand, trying to explain. Isabella, listen, I actually.